We're wrapping up Mailbag week with what ifs and two-man games. Who's the best? And Rhode Island's finest. I love it, of course. Right now, it's all right now. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And I'm here for you, well, not every day, but every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for August and into September, slowing down here as the NBA offseason grinds to a halt, but still giving you more podcasts than anybody else. So 3 days a week for the next 5 weeks or so. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, get onto that YouTube page, get into the comment section. Let me know what you think. Answer some of these questions yourself. Tell me if I'm right or wrong or whatever. I'm John Karalis. I used to play back in the day. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I also wrote a book, by the way, called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. You can buy that wherever you can find your books online. Ending up Mailbag week. That's right. I recorded all 3 shows on Sunday. They have been spread out. This is why I look exactly the same as I did in my first 2 shows. If you're watching the show on YouTube on Monday and Wednesday, yeah, I'm not just wearing this Buffalo Bills body lotion shirt because I love the shirt, although it's a cool shirt if you're into Silence of the Lambs. But I did this because I've been away all week. So I pre-recorded 3 shows for you so you can get all 3 podcasts this week while I was away just hammering rum and gaining 20 pounds. So hope you enjoyed the shows. Hope you subscribe. And hopefully nothing happened over the course of the week. But if it did, I'll talk about it on Monday. Mailbag questions can be submitted via johnkaralis.com/mailbag, by the way. Get your questions in. Plenty of mailbags still going on over the course of the offseason. So let's just get into it right now. Bob says he enjoyed the podcast of the what ifs with the injuries. How about this? What if Joe Mazzulla had Malcolm Brogdon closing games instead of Marcus Smart? Does that improve on the tendency to collapse at the end of games? And when the Celtics traded for Brogdon, it was pretty explicit that that was Ime's intention. Now, I don't know if Ime Udoka would have done that. Who knows? He might have. He might not have. What if Brogdon finished instead of Smart? Well, you look at the numbers, and Brogdon had pretty good numbers with Jayson Tatum. He had pretty bad numbers, or not as good numbers with Jaylen Brown, and that dragged down the performance for all 3. I don't know how much that would have changed things. I don't think that Brogdon coming in would have changed a ton about like late game collapses, because the offense was running through Tatum. And so I think Brogdon would have been just like Marcus Smart, kind of off in the corner. Now, of course, Brogdon's a better shooter, so maybe he hit some shots that Smart didn't hit, but I don't think Smart's shooting cost the Celtics all of those games, right? And I know that people who don't like Marcus Smart will say, oh, it cost them all the games. But I don't think that playing Brogdon in those situations would have been much better. But again, he would have been a better shooter. They might have won a couple of games, but they also, it's possible because of his defense, which was not as good, maybe they would have lost some of the games that they won. So maybe it comes out in the wash. Maybe they win a few of the games that they lost, but they lose a few of the games that they won, and it doesn't make a material difference. It's one thing that I have to kind of trust Mazzulla in I say this knowing that people will throw Derek White at me because I think Derek White should have been closing and he wasn't. I'd like to think that him and his staff would have come up with, hey, what about Malcolm Brogdon? Like, I don't think that didn't come up, right? So if it came up, then it's probably there were probably reasons that it didn't happen. So I can't say that it would be much different. I don't think, like, I haven't spent time thinking of last season and thinking, man, if only Brogdon would have played down the stretch instead of Marcus. Like, that thought's never come into my head. And I think part of the reason why Brogdon kind of lasted as long as he did is because they limited his kind of time, there on the floor. Like they limited his time. Hey, by the way, today's show is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat with any purchase. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. Continuing the what ifs. Owen says, what if the Kristaps Porzingis trade happened last season at the trade deadline? Whew. Well, if it's the exact same deal and Marcus Smart goes to Memphis in the middle of the season and it's Porzingis basically for Marcus Smart and the Celtics get, the picks, it's the same deal. Man, that would be an interesting scenario if that happened at the deadline, because obviously it changes a lot about what the Celtics were, right? And if Porzingis comes in at the deadline, I don't know what Rob would have done. Like, I don't know what they would have done with Robert Williams. He may have been kind of sort of phased out to some degree. Porzingis would have come in and just taken the Robert Williams minutes. And because I just don't know what Joe Mazzulla would have done to throw Rob in there, coming off the injury, coming off the surgery, I should say. It was pretty clear to me all season long that Joe didn't want to throw Rob in there. He went to Rob in the playoffs. Remember in the Philly series, he went to Rob. It was like with some trepidation, and everybody's like, yay, finally, we got to Rob. And Joe, I think Joe was kind of pushed in that direction. And the second in the Miami series that it was like, hey, maybe you shouldn't play Rob, he was like, yep, absolutely. Taking Rob off the floor happened quickly. Getting Rob into the starting lineup happened slowly. So I feel like we might have seen Rob kind of end up like Grant Williams. Both Rob and Grant would have been benched or minimized. Rob would have had to play because he's so good. Like, I really do think he's that good, but he would have been minimized for sure. Grant would have been benched, but Rob would have been kind of seventh man, eighth man. I think because Al Horford was having a 44% shooting year. Porzingis was having the best year of his career efficiency wise. I think Joe would have been like, look at this shiny new toy I get to play with. So does that mean they win a championship? I mean, now we're going a different path. That could have changed their seed. Maybe they would have been the top seed, and that would have changed they face Miami in the first round. Does that help them? That means Tyler Hero doesn't get hurt because he got hurt against Milwaukee. Maybe cosmically he was always supposed to get hurt in the first round, but he got hurt in that Milwaukee series. Inherently, if he was playing Boston, he wouldn't have been in that position to get hurt. So I think Tyler Hero's injury was actually part of why Miami was able to make that run, because he was not a defensive liability. They actually had good defenders out there, and the guys that they put in there just decided that they were going to shoot better than Tyler Hero, which is outrageous. It was an outrageous shooting outlier performance. Hey, good for them, but they actually were shooting better than Tyler Hero and defending better than Tyler Hero. So all that said is to say, if Tyler Hero was playing, then Miami would not have been as good. And the Celtics might have won that first round series. Miami would have gotten bounced in the first round, and it would have been an entirely different playoffs. So that's a what if that needs a whole lot more exploring. We'll table that for now. I think it probably would have worked well. I'll just say that. It probably would have worked well, but I don't know how it would have gone defensively for the Celtics having it happen midstream. But could the Celtics have gotten to the finals? Could they have won a championship? Maybe. I'm not going to say they wouldn't have. We'll get back to, we'll come back and get into the two-man game. The whole second section is about two-man games with a bunch of different like offshoots on that. First, today's show is brought to you by Birddogs. Now, Birddogs are super comfortable, super stylish, and like they just make you look good. Stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and your leg to give you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon but they fit way better. Better than regular shorts, which are stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs got past the stiff, restricting cotton thing by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches. So you get a very slim fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Birddogs uses anti-stink, sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Now, at this point in the ad, I'm supposed to show you Birddogs and show you this very cool white tech hat that you get as a free gift when you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. However, I have a 14-year-old boy in the house, and he stole all of my Birddogs, including the hat. That's a 14-year-old boy who thinks Birddogs look good enough, feel good enough, and are comfortable enough so that he will take them for me. So this is, I'm telling you, it's 14-year-old boy approved. So if the teens are walking around wearing the Birddogs, then you, my friend, can walk around wearing the Birddogs, knowing that you feel cool, knowing that they're comfortable. I would love to show you the very cool white tech hat that I got, but this 14-year-old is now wearing it out on the Cape. So if you see a very stylish 14-year-old in Birddog shorts and a white tech hat, please tell him to return them to me because I would like to wear them myself. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or you go enter the promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat that I don't have anymore. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or promo code LockedOnNBA for a free white tech hat. I'm telling you, you will not want to take off your Birddogs. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Back next week. Sure, more mailbag questions. If you got them, send them in. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Be back 3 days next week. If anything's happened while I'm on vacation all this week, then I will be here for you next week to talk about whatever and get into some more what ifs, get into more discussion about, Derek White's got an extension coming up, potentially. We'll talk about that next week as well. So there's still a lot to talk about here in the Celtics sphere. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get back into the mailbag. Jonas is driving this whole second segment because he says, I think the Celtics could really cook this season if JT and Rob develop a Harden and Embiid level two-man game, and if KP and JB do the same. It would be unstoppable. So we'll start with that. Can the Celtics get not one, but two-man games going on? So, I mean, Rob's already like a ready-made two-man game because he has all of the tools to make that happen. The best two-man game, and let me just fold in his other question before I get into this. I'm really fascinated by the two-man game strategy around the NBA. Were you ever part of a dynamic duo? How do you develop a two-man game? How do you rank the top all-time two-man games in NBA history? Do Celtics make the list? Okay. To develop that two-man game, you got to have, first of all, it's just chemistry. it's feel, it's repetition. But sometimes you just got to have a good partner. And having a good partner is that chemistry, that feel, that's magic. And you look at, to me, the best was Stockton Malone. And it's different from best duo, right? It's the best two-man game is not best duo. So Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum are arguably the best duo in the NBA, or one of the best duos in the NBA. But do they have the best two-man game? No, they don't play off each other at all. Best two-man game is playing off each other. How do you develop that? Chemistry has to be right. The communication has to be right. I think Robert Williams is a great two-man game type of guy, because to run a pick and roll, right, kind of the foundation of the two-man game, pick and roll, dribble handoff, pitch backs, you have to understand a lot of times what's going on with the defense. You have to understand what your partner wants to do. What's he capable of doing? A great passing big like Rob is key, because wherever you go and you're open, he's going to find you. Like, I believe in Robert Williams passing that much. I really hope the Celtics and that staff incorporate his passing much more than they have recently. I think Brad Stevens has been the best at unlocking the Robert Williams passing. So I think having that feel develop, like if you and the partner, your big or your guard, are seeing the same thing at the same time. You got to see the same thing at the same time. You got to both understand they just went under. When the other team goes under, this is what we do. Right? Are you running a dribble handoff? Well, they went under, so it's more of a pitch back, turn, screen, set up the three. Now, also understand that as you set a screen, if they fight through it, you can also make a beeline, because depending on what the defense does, you can go right to the rim and just kind of turn, and the guy who was going to step back and shoot, maybe he just takes an extra beat. It's almost like a screen pass in football. You kind of let the defense go through. He waits for them, dumps it off to the guy, the big, and boom, that's a layup. Or maybe it's a dump off. Who knows? But the point is, both guys are reading the same thing at the same time. That takes time. That takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of repetition. JT and Rob doing that, much more likely than Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis. Much more likely. Simply because Tatum is a better ball handler, and he's worked with Rob a lot more. He's a better passer. So he's that chemistry, him and Rob, and that would work so much better. And they're kind of the same size. Rob and JT are the same size. So it's almost like you guys want to switch? Sure, we'll invite the switch, because Rob is smart enough to slip that and get the pass and then make the next right play after that. It's just more likely, because those are the two guys that have played together. It's tougher for Jaylen and Kristaps, because Jaylen is not necessarily a pick and roll ball handler. And for Porzingis and him to kind of work that, it'll take a lot. By the end of the season, maybe it's a different story. But that takes time, effort, execution, repetition. Now, I've never been a part of that kind of two-man game. That was not how our team was really run. We're not a big pick and roll team. So I never had that kind of thing going on. But it's fun when you can kind of work that. I did have like a little big to big with my my teammate Ken LaFlamme, who was the center and I was the power forward. We did set picks for one another a lot of times. My favorite play was a very simple cross screen. I would read the defense and either pop up to the elbow or run around and post. And if I got the ball at the elbow, or if Ken, if I set the screen for Ken, very, very often there was a dump down pass, and we were really good, I think, passing to one another. Not exactly a 2-man game, but kind of, sort of a big to big 2-man game. Not the same thing, but the closest I ever got. As far as the top 2-man games, you're looking at point guard and a big. So I would say Stockton and Malone are probably the best. You got to have good passing. So, I've been trying to think about this all day long. Magic and Kareem, that type of stuff. I mean, Magic's such an amazing passer. Bird, Bill Walton. Bird and Bill Walton had a great 2-man game because Walton is such the running theme is finesse passing kind of guy. Bird and Walton played. Walton didn't have a ton left by the time he was with the Celtics, but man, him and Bird would work, just dump it in, baseline cut, over the head pass. I mean, just beautiful stuff. But you had to be a big time passing big to get that, to have that kind of dynamic. All right, let's come back and get into Rhode Island's finest minds. There are a few of us over here in Rhode Island with Rhode Island connections in the NBA. And my celebrity game performance. Okay, sure. I want to thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NBA every day, Monday through Friday. Still Monday through Friday. I host on Wednesdays, not this past Wednesday, but next Wednesday I'll be there with Jake Madison. Rotating hosts all week long. It's a good time. Fun topics all week long. So check out the Locked On NBA podcast. All right, third segment is reserved for the more fun, goofy, off-the-wall kind of questions. So if you've got something like that and you go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, then you can submit questions like Owen, who said, who is the better basketball personnel from Rhode Island, Mike Malone, Joe Mazzulla, or Lamar Odom? You forgot somebody. Me! No, okay, fine. Joe and Mike Malone went to Bishop Hendricken. Lamar, URI. I remember that. It's your home state, so you know best. Yeah, nice slight leaving me off the list. I got to go with Michael Malone, because he just won a championship. Lamar Odom, I remember going to the Civic Center, watching him, and I was like, God, this dude does not move when he doesn't have the ball. He was so good when he had the ball. When he didn't have it, I was like, come on. But I mean, as a player, obviously, he's one of the best to come through. But Michael Malone just won a championship. So how can I argue with that? Rhode Island's finest, Michael Malone, in a brief stop through Rhode Island. But Joe, hey, you got some room. Let's see if you can climb to the top of that ladder. Charlie asks, have you ever visited Vermont? Now, I did talk about states that I have visited and haven't visited. I mean, I'm from Rhode Island, so I've been to every New England state multiple times. Vermont, when I was younger and I was skiing like crazy, was one of my favorite spots. I've been to Stowe. I've been to Killington. I've been to Mount Snow. I've been to Okemo. When I was young, I haven't skied in a long time, but Vermont skiing is amazing. So is skiing in New Hampshire. So is skiing in Maine. But when I was younger and a ton of ski trips, Killington a ton of times, Mount Snow tons of times. I remember one of my favorite stories of Mount Snow is when I was young. I was probably like 10 skiing. And my dad brought me out there, and it was just a big block of ice. No one was on the mountain because it was just horrible conditions. But we decided to go up to Mount Snow for a weekend. We rented a cabin, and my dad said, we're here, we're going skiing. And he put me out there. I was obviously not a great skier. And we went to the top of the mountain, and I could not stop. And I was just basically a straight line from, I don't know how I'm here to even tell you this story, because I was a 10-year-old on a big giant ice cube and just straight down. I fell somewhere halfway up the mountain. I think I made it all the way down, still off my skis, and I didn't stop. So fun times in Vermont. Thank you for bringing that up. No, Vermont is beautiful. Vermont is awesome. Owen's very heavily featured here. Says, if you were in the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game next year, how would you do? Well, I probably not well, because I'm 50 and most of my skills have gone away. But I will say, if the NBA said, hey, John, we would like you to participate in the All-Star Celebrity Game, I would take it very seriously, and I would go out there and shoot a ton of shots and get myself ready. I don't know what kind of shape I would be in, but I would get my jumper as wet as possible. I think it's the celebrity game, but also, like I said, I'm 50, so I would not be moving well, right? I would not be sprinting up and down the floor. I can't jump anymore. I used to be able to dunk. Now I can barely, we were shooting around outside in my hoop in the yard, and the ball got wedged. And I thought, let me just jump up and knock that out, because I've always, all my life, been able to jump and dislodge a wedgie, and I couldn't reach the wedgie. And I just sat there and grabbed my shorts, and I was just like, damn, old age, just cursing I'm also probably a solid 75 pounds above my playing weight. So it's been a long road. So it's not the same. And now Owen asks the final question here. Which NBA player do you most play like, and why? Current player only. Well, the current player only thing makes it very difficult, because I was a post player, and there's no current player. I have no current comp. I was trying to think of a current comp. I can't think of one. I was a post player. I played a lot in the post, back to the basket. I would get like I said, Ken and I would screen for each other in college. A lot of time, one of us comes over. So Ken screens for me. I'm reading the defense. Is he, which side is he on? I'm going, if he's up high, I'm going down low. I'm going baseline. I'm getting position on the block. I'm trying to catch the pass. And then either I am just drop stepping and scoring, or, jump hook, or I'm going to find someone to pass to. Trust me, I didn't pass a ton when I was in college. Or I would go up high if I caught the ball in the high post. A lot of times, if they overreacted, dump down to Ken for a dunk. That was an easy play. But that was it. Who plays like that? Who has a back to the basket game, but flashes to the elbow to hit 15 footers, which I hit at 55%. So that was, I had a solid mid-range game, but I didn't shoot threes in college. I didn't bring my game all the way out to the 3-point line. That's not what they wanted me to do. I was a big rebounder. I had probably 7 or 8 20 rebound games in college. So I was definitely around the basket. I have a few 20-20 games to my credit. And so who's that? Undersized guy that didn't shoot threes, that was kind of more mid-range, and no one plays like that now. No one plays like that. So what's my current comp? Nobody. Grant Williams, maybe, but I wasn't a 3-point shooter, so that's out. Again, got to remember, I played ball. College was mid-90s, and when I was in Greece, it was the tail 1996. So early to mid-90s was my heyday. So that's 3-point emphasis, No, it was all, I'm all back to the basket, mid-range kind of guy, not bringing the ball up, none of that stuff. So undersized power forward kind of guy, or at that level, kind of aptly sized power forward. So I got no comp. If you have a comp for me, then that's how I played. Scored a ton around the basket, scored a ton in the paint, scored some in the mid-range jumpers, didn't take it out to the three-point line. That was it. Very old school basketball. I'm a very old school type of player. Trust me, I would have loved to shoot three-pointers. I wanted to. My coach could attest to that. I wanted to. In fact, I played in an all-star game my senior year after it was over. I played in an all-star game. The coach was there, and I decided that I was going to start taking threes in the all-star game. I hit like 3 or 4 threes in the all-star game, and after each one, I turned and I looked at him in the crowd. I just gave him a little glare, and everybody who was there, was like a few teammates of mine, they were all laughing because I was like looking at the coach. And I was doing it kind of like half jokingly, but it was more like, told you I could. So that was the extent of it. Maybe I should have shot more threes. Maybe I should have just done it. All right, that's been the week of Mailbag episodes. Thank you so much for all of the questions at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Submit more questions if you got more questions. Plenty of time in the offseason to answer more questions if you got them. But plenty to talk about otherwise too. So I'll be back next week with 3 more shows, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Again, talking about Derek White's extension. That's going to be a topic that's coming up and other things. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. More podcasting here about the Celtics than anywhere else. Trying to have some fun in the off season. Not going to go off topic like this during the regular season, but I will give you 5, 6, maybe 7 podcasts a week during the regular season. So make sure you are subscribed. If you're an everydayer, if you're listening on a regular basis, would love it if you share the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.